She had the dress, the ring, the man, and her best friend standing beside her. Until one anonymous message shattered everything, just hours before the wedding. What would you do if you caught the two people you trusted most, in your house, in your bed, hours before you said I do? This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about a woman who turned heartbreak into a public reckoning that turned the entire wedding upside down. Before we dive in, let me know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you're here for stories of strength, truth, and comeback queens, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next? You won't see it coming. It was the night before her forever. Avery Bassett stood in front of the full-length mirror, draped in silk and silence, her wedding dress shimmering like the dream she'd carried since girlhood. In the quiet of her DC brownstone, everything looked perfect. The scent of white lilies floated in from the living room. Her mother's pearls were laid out neatly beside a handwritten note, for courage and clarity. Tomorrow, she would marry Travis Scott, a man who had once looked her in the eyes and told her, "I've never felt safer than with you." But tonight, something in her spirit whispered otherwise. From the outside, Avery's life was a portrait of accomplishment. A Howard University alumna, policy advisor for a prominent nonprofit, and a fierce advocate for underserved Black communities in D.C., she had rebuilt herself after heartbreak, grief, and a brutal miscarriage 2 years earlier. And Travis, polished, poised, powerful, had been the one who walked into that broken space with flowers and steady hands, promising never to let her break again. They met at a housing forum, of all places. She was speaking. He was watching. By the end of the night, he offered to drive her home in a car that smelled like confidence and cologne. By the end of the month, she was in love. Still, the only person who knew every inch of Avery's soul was Bianca Shields, her best friend since undergrad. They'd built each other from scratch, survived the lean years with shared groceries and dreams. Bianca was the one who sat beside her after the miscarriage, who ran interference when Avery couldn't face another baby shower. She had stood guard over Avery's heart until Travis showed up. Then, slowly, she stepped back. Avery thought it was respect. It wasn't. That evening, Bianca was supposed to be staying over. Final prep, wine, laughter, maybe one last tearful toast to the single life. But she was running late. Avery tried not to overthink it. She paced through the hallway, phone in hand, texting, calling, watching her screen light up with silence. Travis had sent a voice note earlier. Long call with investors, babe. I might crash early tonight. Can't wait for tomorrow. Avery smiled at it then. She would cry at it later. Outside, DC wore its usual cloak of autumn chill, streetlights casting long shadows over brownstones and whispers down alleyways. The city was quiet, but her heart wasn't. She sat at the edge of her bed and stared at the bridal veil folded beside her. A laugh escaped her lips, nervous, broken at the edges. Bianca would say I'm being dramatic, she whispered aloud. That's when her phone lit up again, a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. Check the guest room. Her breath caught. At first, she laughed again. Nerves, surely. A prank. A sick joke from a jealous ex or some spam bot. But then, her skin chilled. That whisper in her chest turned into a shout. She rose slowly, barefoot, the hardwood cool beneath her. The hallway felt longer than it ever had. Shadows moved where they shouldn't have. The air was still, but charged, like the moment before a summer storm. Her hand hovered over the guest room doorknob. She didn't know it yet, but this was the moment everything changed. Tomorrow was supposed to be her beginning. But tonight would rewrite the rest of her life. Avery Bassett stood frozen outside the guest room door. Her hand trembled, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous, intuition. The kind passed down through generations of Black women who were taught to smile when their hearts were screaming. Who knew how to spot betrayal by the silence it left behind. But Avery didn't open the door, not yet. She pulled her hand back, forcing a deep breath through her nose, commanding herself to be rational. Maybe Bianca had come in and gone straight to bed. Maybe she was in there changing. Maybe this was just wedding nerves feeding her anxiety, giving shape to ghosts that didn't exist. She turned away. Instead, she walked down the hallway, flicked on the kitchen light, and poured herself a glass of water. The faucet hissed like it knew something she didn't. Her fingers wrapped around the glass, grounding herself, counting. 1, 2, 3. She thought of Travis's voice note. Long call with investors. Strange. His company didn't have investor meetings this late. And Bianca, Why hadn't she called back? The two people closest to her were both unreachable on the most important night of her life. She walked back to the bedroom, sat down, and pulled out her phone again. Still no reply from Bianca. She tapped open Travis's location. He'd shared it months ago without her asking, said he had nothing to hide. But tonight, his location was off. Her heart pounded louder. Then she noticed something she hadn't before. A faint scent, not hers, on the air. Sweet, like coconut and vanilla. Familiar. Bianca's perfume. Avery stood. Walked again toward the hallway. This time, slower. The door to the guest room was still closed. The hallway light flickered slightly, maybe from the old wiring, maybe from the weight of the moment. She pressed her ear to the door. Silence. Then, a whisper. A soft shuffle. A breath. She pulled back. Her palms dampened. Her knees felt unsteady beneath her. Her wedding dress, hanging in the next room, suddenly felt like a joke. A costume for a play she no longer wanted to perform in. Still, she hesitated. She didn't want to know. Not really. Knowing would mean breaking. Knowing would mean that everything, the man she trusted, the friend she loved, was a lie wrapped in pretty packaging. And yet, something deeper inside her, some truth-teller buried beneath all the years of grace and forgiveness and second chances, screamed, "Open the damn door." But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she went back to her room, set the phone on her nightstand, and sat at the edge of the bed with both hands pressed to her thighs. Her reflection in the mirror stared back at her, beautiful, composed, and unraveling. Then her phone buzzed. No name. No words. Just a photo. Her heart stopped. Two people. One bed. One betrayal so precise it didn't need a caption. Her world tilted. Her lungs forgot how to breathe. The photo disappeared after 10 seconds. Gone. Like innocence. Like trust. She rose, numb, furious, frightened, fighting the urge to scream or sob. Her hand moved again to the hallway, but this time it didn't tremble. She turned the knob. Slowly. Deliberately. And pushed the door open. What she saw next would not only break her heart, it would change the way she saw herself forever. The door creaked open. It was dark, just the muted glow of a phone screen on the nightstand and the faint amber light spilling in from the hallway. The air was heavy, thick with perfume and heat. Avery stood in the doorway, silent, motionless. And there they were. Travis Scott. Bianca Shields. Entwined. The man she was supposed to marry in less than 12 hours. The woman who once held her hand as she bled through grief. Neither of them saw her at first. The way their bodies moved said this wasn't the first time. There was no clumsiness, no shame, just rhythm. Familiarity. A betrayal that had grown roots. Bianca turned first. And for a moment, the world paused. Eyes locked. Gasps died before they reached lips. Travis flinched like he'd been shot. Avery. But she didn't move. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. She stared. And in that gaze was everything. 10 years of friendship, 5 years of love, 2 years of mourning, and one final night of believing in people who had no business being close to her heart. Bianca scrambled off the bed, grabbing the sheet like modesty could save her now. Avery, listen, I didn't mean for this to happen. Avery blinked. You didn't mean. Her voice was calm, eerily so, like it belonged to someone else. Travis sat up, naked in more ways than one. It's not what it looks like. Avery looked at him. You mean, it's worse. He stood, fumbling for words. We were going to tell you. After the wedding. I swear. After the wedding, she repeated. So what? I walk down the aisle, say my vows. And then what? A group announcement at the reception. Bianca started to cry, but Avery didn't offer her comfort. Not this time. I needed someone, Bianca choked out. You had Travis, your work, your world. I was alone. He listened. Avery took a step forward, her voice colder than the marble floors beneath her. You were at the ultrasound. Bianca froze. You sat next to me. You cried with me. And then you crawled into my man's bed. Silence. Even the shadows in the room seemed ashamed. Avery looked at Travis. How long? He hesitated. She stepped closer. Don't lie. Not tonight. 9 months. Her heart broke with precision. Not in an explosion, but in a million quiet fractures that rearranged who she was. Avery looked at them, These two people she had once prayed for. She whispered, "I hope it was worth it." Then she turned. But just as she reached the hallway, Bianca's voice shattered the moment. "Avery, I'm pregnant." The room spun. Avery froze mid-step. Her breath caught somewhere between rage and disbelief. "I didn't want to lie to you," Bianca sobbed. "But I didn't want to lose you either." Avery turned back slowly, her face unreadable. "You're pregnant, with his child." Bianca didn't speak. But Travis did. And what he said twisted everything. "It's not mine." The room went still. Bianca's eyes widened. "Travis." Avery stepped back, whispering, "Wait, what?" Travis clenched his jaw. "It's not mine. She told me she was late, said she thought it was mine. But the dates didn't add up. I didn't believe her." Bianca stared at him in betrayal now, too. "You said." "I said I'd take care of it. I never said it was mine." Avery looked between them. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a war zone of lies, and she was the battlefield. The man who cheated, and then denied the child. The woman who slept with her fiancé, then clung to a lie for protection. And somehow, Avery was still standing. Not broken. Burning. In that moment, something in her shifted. If they wanted war, she would give them one. The morning sun filtered weakly through the curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Washington, D.C. was beginning to wake, but Avery Bassett had not slept. She sat at the edge of her bed, no makeup, no veil. Just truth. The kind that stripped you bare. The wedding dress hung in the corner, limp and irrelevant now, its fabric too delicate for the war that had just been declared in her own home. She stared at it, then turned away, as if looking at a ghost she no longer believed in. Her phone buzzed again. Bianca. She didn't pick up. Avery wasn't crying anymore. That part of her had been buried last night, along with whatever remained of her old self. What stood in its place wasn't bitter, it was focused. This wasn't the kind of betrayal you recover from. It was the kind you answer. She opened her laptop. Not for emails. For receipts. She started with Travis's past, business deals she'd once helped him organize. Tax records. Loan histories. Property titles. And soon, she found something. A development deal gone sideways, one he had quietly settled by borrowing against a property that wasn't fully his. The deed had been in her name. He forged her signature. That was fraud. She saved the documents in a new folder on her desktop. Named it, Insurance. Then she turned to Bianca. Bianca had planned the wedding. Every vendor, every payment, every check. Avery had trusted her completely. But now that trust was a roadmap. She pulled up an invoice from the florist. Strange. The quoted price was one amount, but the actual amount transferred was higher. She checked 3 more vendors. All showed the same pattern. Bianca had been overcharging her. Skimming. Quietly. For months. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was financial. Criminal. Surgical. And Avery, blessed with both memory and meticulousness, began to connect every dot. She called in a favor from her cousin Simone, a tech consultant for the city government. Simone had always warned her to stay ahead of men who looked too clean and friends who smiled too wide. Simone didn't ask questions. She pulled surveillance footage from the parking garage near Travis's office. 2 nights before the engagement party, Travis and Bianca were there, together. Not in passing. Not in conversation. In an embrace. Avery smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp. Icy. Controlled. She wasn't about to scream in public or ruin her own name for revenge. That would give them too much. No, this would be surgical. She called her lawyer, Ms. Randall, a sharp black woman who never blinked twice at mess. Avery explained everything. Randall asked one question. Do you want to press charges or let them burn on their own? Avery answered. I want both. Next, she called the wedding venue. She didn't cancel. She reproposed. She called her father. Told him she loved him. Told him she needed him to be there tomorrow. For her, not for a wedding. He didn't ask why. He said, always. Then she sent one text to Travis. See you at the altar. And to Bianca. Wear something black. It suits you. She didn't yell. She didn't post. She didn't threaten. She strategized. Because when a woman like Avery Bassett gets up off the floor, she doesn't just rise. She reconstructs the battlefield. The wedding venue was flawless. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. Rows of cream-colored chairs lined the aisle like loyal soldiers. The floral arch, designed by Bianca herself, stood tall, lush, and mocking. Every detail whispered luxury, beauty, tradition. Guests filed in wearing smiles and silk. But there was no music. No officiant. And no groom. Avery Bassett arrived alone. Dressed in white, but not the gown they expected. She wore a sleek, tailored pantsuit, clean, sharp, unapologetically hers. The room quieted when she entered, the train of her suit trailing like authority behind her. She took the mic in silence. Her father stood beside her, solemn, proud. And as the hush deepened, Avery began. "I want to thank you all for coming," she said, voice smooth, steady. "You were invited here to witness a union. You will still witness one, just not the one you expected." Guests shifted. Whispered. "I'm not here to marry Travis Scott," she said. "Because Travis made vows to someone else. Repeatedly. Behind my back. In my home." A collective gasp swept through the room like a gust of wind. Bianca, seated near the front, froze mid-breath. Avery's eyes landed on her. Calm. Cold. Knowing. "I was betrayed," Avery continued. "By my best friend. The woman who planned this wedding. The woman I once called my sister. Bianca Shields." Bianca tried to stand. "Avery, don't." Avery raised a hand. "I'm not finished." She clicked a remote. A projector lit up behind her. Slide 1. A series of invoices, florists, caterers, decorators. All overcharged. All linked to Bianca's account. Slide 2. Surveillance footage. Bianca and Travis in the garage. Arms wrapped. Kisses exchanged. Time stamped. Slide 3. A notarized property deed. Travis's forged signature. Avery's stolen ownership. Murmurs erupted. A guest in the back whispered, "Is this real?" Then came the final slide. An email. Dated 1 week ago. From Bianca to Travis. Subject, "I can't keep this lie anymore. Buddy, if she finds out the baby isn't yours, she'll never forgive me. Please, we have to tell her. Before it gets worse." Avery let it hang in the air. Travis stood now, red-faced, stammering. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Avery said. "You were never going to be honest. But I don't need your truth. I brought my own." Bianca was crying now, but Avery didn't flinch. "You used me," Avery said, eyes locked on her former friend. "And you thought I'd fall apart. But I'm still standing. Stronger. Smarter. And one step ahead." She stepped down from the stage and approached them. "To be clear," she said, voice calm, "I'm not pressing charges yet. But I've filed everything with my attorney. If you touch $1 more of mine, make one more call to a vendor in my name, I will." Then she turned to the crowd. "You came for a wedding. But today, you're witnessing a resurrection." A pause. "I buried the girl who trusted too easily. And from that grave, I pulled the woman who knows her worth." The audience erupted in applause. Not just polite, visceral. The sound of people recognizing strength, and perhaps, pieces of their own buried pain. As Avery walked back down the aisle, alone, proud, free, her voiceover lingered. "They thought they could ruin me in secret. I exposed them in the light." It had been 6 weeks. The venue had been cleared. The news had spread. The whispers had grown quiet. But Avery Bassett? She was louder than ever. Not in volume, but in presence. She walked with a different cadence now. Not heavier. Not harder. Just rooted. There was no more performance in her steps, no more questions in her eyes. She knew who she was. And more importantly, who she was never going to be again. On a crisp Saturday morning, she sat at her favorite cafe in Shore, sipping coffee by the window. The same cafe where she and Bianca once mapped out centerpieces and color palettes. Where Travis had surprised her with ring sketches on napkins. Where she used to dream of a life that needed permission. Now she dreamed differently. She'd moved into a new place, smaller, simpler. Not because she had to, but because she chose peace over presentation. The old brownstone was sold. The profits reinvested into a women's legal advocacy fund she'd launched for survivors of financial manipulation and betrayal. It was already helping 3 women press charges against former partners. She named the fund Bassett Boundaries. She laughed when her father called it beautifully petty. Bianca had sent 3 letters. Avery never opened them. Forgiveness wasn't off the table. But it was on her terms. Not because Bianca begged, but because Avery chose when and how to let go. As for Travis, the last time she saw him was in court. The property forgery? Settled. Quietly. He lost more than money. He lost access to her name. Her silence. Her protection. She didn't ruin him. She simply removed him. And somehow, that was louder. She glanced down at her phone. A message from Simone. 2 more sign-ups to the fund today. You're building something big, cousin. Avery smiled. Not because it was big, but because it was real. Later that day, she walked through Meridian Hill Park, wind sweeping through her coat. She passed a young woman on a bench, tears in her eyes, phone clenched in hand. Avery paused, offered a knowing smile. You okay? She asked. The girl nodded, but barely. Avery sat beside her. Heartbreak doesn't kill you, she said gently. It chisels you into someone you didn't know you could be. The girl blinked. You been through it too. Avery looked ahead, the sun catching her cheekbones like anointing oil. I survived a love that betrayed me. And I still believe in love. Just not the kind that asks me to shrink. They sat in silence. The kind that heals. As she walked away, a voiceover played. Slow, honest, earned. I was never the woman who needed to be saved. I was the woman who remembered who she was. And sometimes, that's the most dangerous thing you can do. Remember. The final shot? Avery, standing alone at the edge of the Potomac, hair whipping in the wind. Her hand unclenches. A single pearl, her mother's, drops into the water. Letting go. Not to forget, but to reclaim. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself from betrayal, you're not alone. Drop a heart emoji in the comment section if you know your worth now. Share this with someone who's still finding theirs. And remember, being underestimated is the best position to launch from.